Hi, today we're going to do a split complementary color scheme cactus. That sounds really complicated, but it's not. So remember last week we did a complementary color schemed picture. We did either lemons with a shadow or oranges with a shadow. And if you did lemons, you used a purple shadow. And if you did oranges, you did a blue shadow. So orange is the complementary color of blue. Yellow and purple are complementary colors. So green and red are complementary colors. So I'm sure you're getting the gist here. It's the opposites on the color wheel. Now, color wheels can include a lot more color than this. This is a 12-part color wheel. It's rather simple, but it gives us the idea. So there's another color scheme called a split complementary. So basically what you do is you come down across, here's the green. The complementary for green is red and so forth, or technically the complementary for the primary red is green. But the complementary scheme is these two. So you can come down and split, or you can come from here and split. And that's called a split complementary scheme. So in this case, I'm going to use green and a reddish orange and a reddish purple. So the colors I've chosen are these. I have them already on my palette, which this looks crazy, but it is this color. I've mixed this color because I didn't have exactly that color, so I mixed a big puddle of it to start with. And then I have two greens here because we're going to do a cactus and we're going to need a little more to give it some depth. So I'm cheating a tiny bit because technically in this color scheme you would just use a single green, but this is gonna make it look nicer, and this still isn't so far towards yellow that we're going off into a whole nother color. So you know, it's a guideline. So that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to start by getting our brush just a tiny bit wet, and I like to start, we're going to put it in a pot. So my decision for today is to use these colors. The cactus is going to be the greens and maybe some of the other colors to shade the green to get it really dark on the edges. And then it's going to be sitting in a nice little flower pot. And then it's going to have flowers on it. So, you know, pretty simple way to get in those colors that I want to get. So I'm getting this wet to make my little flower pot. So here we go. I'm just doing the base of the pot. I'll probably put a little stand on it or base to it later. I'm just getting the pot shape in. You can't see it because it's clear water. And then I'm going to use the orangish color for this pot. So I'm just going to come in, and because I put water onto dry, the paint is going to go in the direction of the water, and it's going to stay there because I created an edge on the dry paper. Nice, huh? So here we are. Now, there we are getting our pot shape in. To make it look rounded, it needs to be darker to one side and lighter to the other. Remember, with watercolor, to get that lighter other side, we simply add more water. Now I have a lot of water here and it's not looking light yet. So I'm going to get the paint off that brush and I'm going to suck up some of that water. Okay. And I think I'm going to do a little bit straighter edge on this. Now, I would also kind of went over the edge more than I wanted, so I'm just going to extend it. I would also really like to have, there we go, nice little highlight. I'm just going to pull out enough color that there's a nice little highlight on the side of that flower pot. So really not too hard. Now, the other advantage of using complementary colors is the complement can darken the color, and it's nicer than just black. So I'm just going to add a strip of the green to the red down the side of this pot, and down under the side of this pot, and it's going to darken that red, give it a hint of green, kind of tapping it in there to get it to blend a bit, but that's going to give me a little more dimension to this pot. Oops, you see that I got over the edge too much? I'm just going to widen it out a tiny bit there. Alrighty. So now I'm kind of getting a little bit of a shadow on there. Could pull together maybe a little line down the side, just to give it a little more of an edge. All right, so there we go. There's that. I'm going to rinse that brush, dry it, and just kind of wiggle these in a bit. There we go. Soften that. Okay, feeling like I'd like a little more color over here. So I just went in there and got some straight of that reddish orange. Throwing it along that one side. I just wanted it a little brighter. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay, now again, I've got more of a line there than I want. I like my watercolor to be nice and soft. Clean my brush and just kind of come in and wiggle that little edge. Okay, so there we go. There's the beginning of my pot. I can always add to this later if I want there to be a little more dark. I added that red and now it's not as dark as I wanted. Just tapping a little more in there. That green immediately turns brown. Your complementary colors typically make a brown, but different colors of brown. So now I have my pot in, my basic pot. I can add some detail to this later when it's dry. Pull some more color out to get the highlight. You could also completely leave an area without water to make your highlight the bright white of the paper, okay? Either way works. In fact, that probably would work better than what I'm doing now, just pulling that color out. Okay, so now I have my little cactus in mind of what I'm gonna do. So it's gonna be one of those big cactuses with the little babies on it. Now, what I've got going here though is this is damp, so I'm just about taking my water down, but not all the way. And not getting the entire thing wet either. And then I'm going to come over and add some arms on here. And I want it to be kind of haphazard. So you don't want it to be this perfectly symmetrical little cactus, because I don't know about you, but I've never seen a plant that is absolutely perfectly symmetrical. I've seen some that are close, because God's pretty creative that way, you know. But I've never seen any that are absolutely perfect. So I'm just kind of making these little guys coming out. All right, now I'm gonna start with my lighter green, okay? I always start with the lighter with watercolor. You can always get darker, but you can't get lighter if you've stained your paper. Kind of the way it goes. So I'm gonna come through with this lighter green that I picked. And I'm just going to introduce it into all of these little cactus-y sections, right? To get this edge. Now, like I said, I know where these edges are because I'm sitting here and I can see the glisten of the water on the paper. And you'll be able to see it too when you're working on your own. It's starting to get a little later in the day and my light's not as good, so I might have to flip a light on here. Added water instead of paint. Okay, a little more paint. Now notice too, I'm not overly playing with this because I like these runs. I like these shapes that are forming and the bits of color that's kind of doing its own thing in the whole scheme. I think this would be better a little wider. So it's even within just using this one color. This I'll get further down in there when I know that's dry. I can still get different shades by how much water I'm using. And if you also notice, I'm using a little bit different watercolor pad this time. This one has more ridges on it. Just something different that I had on hand, and I thought I'd use it just to show you some of the different options out there. So there we go, some darker edges to give it more dimension. This is one of those cactuses that has, you know, like a baby and then another baby that attaches. So here we go. I'm not going to use any complementary color at this point to darken my green. I don't think it's needed. And I have the other green that I'm going to come in with here in a second. I'm gonna let this dry just a tiny bit. In fact, this area is already getting dry, so I'm gonna go ahead and start adding in a little of my darker green that I told you we were gonna use. Remember I said I was kind of cheating on this just a tiny bit by using two greens? Now I'm going to come in, and I've just decided that this side is the shadow side. And now I'm going to add a bit of a darker edge down that one side. So this is kind of a loose style. This green is almost like a grassy green. Kind of wish it was a darker green, but I am adding in another layer of shadow when it gets a little more dry. And for that, I will mix a little bit of that reddish orange in with the green like I did here. And instead of letting it go brown, it'll be more green, but it'll still be, I might try the purple in it too, just to see what happens. But it'll let me put even more of a shadow on. So this, it'll give it a third depth. So I've got the light green, the darker green, and then I'll come back in with a really darker green when I feel like this, when this is dry. And I've also got my hairdryer handy so I can dry it if I need to, which I probably will. So here we go. Now notice again, I'm just letting these colors kind of run into each other. I'm gonna put this on a little more intensely. Okay, I'm gonna get some more intense of this green too. Give it some vibrancy. There we go. Ooh, liking that a little better. We're gonna put a little more there, there. And then come back over here. Okay. And I think I'm going to add a little water in here. Give this some action. Give it something to run into. So that's looking kind of cool. Liking that so far. Maybe there might be a little bit more of a shadow down here because this thing is hanging over. So I'm going to add a little bit of the straight green over here. And now, like I said, kind of got the top of that flower pot, didn't I? Oof. This really isn't going to be a problem because I can fix this in a little bit when it's dry by putting some more red. And I think it could use some more color in there. It's really dry and pale. So I'm going to very carefully dry this. Because if I am too crazy with it, it's going to push the color around. So I'm going to have to be gentle. But I can't put the flowers on the tips of the cactuses until the green is dry. And I can't put the dark spikes of the cactus and the darker bits on the flower pot until things are dry. So that's what I'm doing now. So we've got this mess here, which is fine. I'm used to messes. I, again, did something before. Now this is dry, and this is intense paint, pure paint. So I'm going to run that across there and down this edge because I want this more vibrant. I'm going to add a little water to it here in a minute too, and I'm adding a little bit of the lighter green this time to deepen that red. Yeah, I like that better. Okay. And I'm going to run it down into here. Okay, now I'm going to get a little water. Get these colors to come together and play. There we go. There we go. There. Not so bad. Not so bad. Putting a little bit through here. And there we go. Now I don't want to totally obliterate my highlight I got going on over here, but I do want a little bit more red over here too. And I want some of that lighter green. So what I did is I ran a streak of red, and now I'm running a streak of green. Not too tough. And now I'm gonna rinse my brush entirely, and then I'm just gonna kind of encourage those colors to soften up a little and mix. Alrighty, there we go. And clear water, soften it, and keep that highlight pulled through. There we go. There we go. Okay. There's my flower pot. Still feeling like I want more color on that. I know what you're thinking, but that's what I'm thinking. There we go. I think I'm liking that a little better. Okay. Now we're going to come in and we're going to take a little bit of that same orangish color that we've got. And if I need more, I can squirt some more out. I've got my paint set aside. And I'm going to add some of this lighter green. I don't know how much of it I want yet, so I'm just going to take part of that. And I think we need more green than red. What's wrong with me? I forgot we're darkening the green. We're not darkening the red. My brain is working backwards. There we go. That's more what we're wanting. Yes, that darker green. And I'm going to add a little of our other green. I got a dryish piece hanging in there. Okay. I'm going to flip a light on here, so it might change the way things look for a sec. But just need more light. Sun's going down quicker than I thought. I'm still having trouble accepting that. In my mind, it should still be June, and I should still be thinking about when I'm going to go swimming. But it is not. It is October. Okay, now I've got a nice deep green. It's kind of olivey even, see? It's almost brown. Not sure I like it that brown, so I'm going to come over here with more green. Whoops, sorry, wasn't doing that in front of you. There we go. And I'm going to use this darker bit to add some spikes. And also, if I need to add some, a little more water, so I've got more of a draw ability. There we go. To add some little spikes out to the side. If I feel like it needs more shading down one side, I can do that. See? This. I can get this wet in a minute. Yeah, it needs a little more darkness down this one side. And I need to get my spikes in there, my nice little cactus needles, right? And they kind of go this way and that way. And they come off the side. And I need to get this guy connected. So let's add some more through here. A little color through here. And then I need to continue with some little spikies. Now I'm going to come in with some water too and soften where I've put in this highlight. So now right now it might seem a little graphic, that it's not maybe quite where it should be, but it'll look okay in a minute when I lighten that up. Or yeah, soften it up rather, not lighten it up. I guess it'll lighten a little because it's when it has water added, it does lighten. This one's tiny, so he doesn't have a flower probably. It should kind of come together in the middle and be darker where that's coming together. And then spike, spike, spike. And then these guys, a couple more spikies. And going to put a flower up here. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a bud for the flower to hang on to. And some spikes. And then this one's going to get a flower. And this one's going to get a flower. And then I need a few more spikes in here. And big old spiky cactus. And this connects here. Alrighty, now I think I got enough spikes, maybe. We'll see. You could also bring in some white highlights if you wanted and add spikes that way, like highlights of spikes. Totally up to you. So now I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to get it just a barely bit damp because I want to be careful. And I'm just going to run, get a big water droplet. I'm just going to run my brush through that darker paint enough to kind of wet it a bit and soften the edge so it doesn't just look like a line running down through there. And that's going to, if you can see what I'm doing, I'm kind of softening that up and giving it kind of to let it darken that little area. Because I wanted that part to have a little more shadow, remember? Get a little more water here. Remember again, watercolors are always water soluble. True watercolors. There are some ink-based ones that are not once they're dry, but these are traditional watercolors that are always water soluble. So that means you can come back in and do this. So here we go. Now, normally I try to soften the lines, but when you're trying to do a shaded edge, there's usually an edge to the shadow. So I'm okay that that shadowed edge has a distinct edge to it, okay? Sometimes you wanted a true like chiaroscuro, but watercolor is a much looser style. So you definitely want to just work with that. Okay, kind of liking that. I guess could use a little more shadow up in here, so I'll pull some of that in. There we go. I think we added a tiny bit over here, didn't we? Gotta watch those spikes. I don't want my spikes to suddenly run everywhere. I want them to stay spiky. So, whoops, moved my camera. There we go. The other thing I might want to do here is maybe get a little bit of it dark down here where it's going into that pot. There we go. And that pot needs to be sitting on a table. Right now it's just floating in space, but we're going to have it sitting on a table here in a minute. In fact, I think we're going to do that first because these little flower tip edges that we're going to put flower tips need to dry. And while they're drying, before we add in the purple, for that, we're going to put just a wash of this purple across here. I know that seems really garish right now because it does up against that purple, that red rather, orangish red. But we're going to soften it with some water. So there's the edge of the tabletop. There we go. And then let it just kind of fade towards the front. And I'm going to give us just a tiny bit of a shadow. I'm just tapping in the darker color up underneath. The light is coming from over here, so I'm going to let this side of the tabletop be a little darker to show a shadow that's kind of cast on that one side. I'm not going to make it super distinct. I'm just kind of tapping it and letting it flow down as it wants to, and that's all this needs. Again, a loose style that we're working with today. Alrighty, kind of liking that too. I think I'm going to turn my dryer on again. Several cups of clear water here so I can switch when I need to, so I don't tint my paint with tinted water. And that's another key thing to do when you're working with watercolor, is to make sure you're being careful about that. Now I'm going to check this for dryness. Yes, that is dry. So now I'm going to water down this pink that I used, this purplish pink, and I'm going to water it down really light. And I'm just going to very, very carefully wiggle in a bit of a flower. So these are those little cactus flowers that you see that kind of open up big, almost like a rose. They're so pretty. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put one up here. Actually, I'm going to put the bud of one. Well, that spike is kind of there. I can't decide if I want to make it. I think I'm just going to do this. We're going to put him off to the side. I should say her. They're little flowers, right? And then I'm going to put a little small one right here. Well, maybe not so small. Regular size one. I kind of, is that enough? Kind of like that. Alrighty, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the corner of a clean piece of paper towel and I'm going to suck up some of this water and pigment to lighten that up, okay? Another clean edge. Oops. Suck this one up. All right. And then one more down here. I'm trying to really suck these up nicely. There we go. Okay, now, I liked that dark down there. And when that mixed, so we're gonna darken that up a little more. I kind of liked that, and I sucked it out. This one is kind of hanging off the edge of that cactus top, so I'm gonna add that back in. Very barely wet brush was what I was doing. So this is safe to do. It's not gonna bleed into that other bit because it's so dry. And then this one too could probably use a tiny bit of base. Be careful, that one's wanting to run into that, but it looks like it's going to tolerate it. Now, while that's drying, before I could put a little bit darker bit in to give it a dimension, as I'm looking at this, I really like this red. I like the vibrancy, and I also like the purple. But my brain is saying, what if you mixed the purple and red and did a swash of color through here? So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to try it on here, on this scrap piece. So I'm going to mix a little bit of this purple, and I'm going to kind of pull it over so it's not contained with this other bit of purple. I know I've got greens and weird things going on. And then, here, let's put it up here. So we know it's far away from the other colors and they're not going to mix together. I probably need to wash this off to start fresh, huh? And then I'm taking this reddish orange that we've been using. I'm going to put a little bit of that in there. And it's going to check it on here and see what we have. Kind of a purplish red, but it's not darker than that. So why don't we try, I'm gonna rinse my brush again. I know this is a lot of steps, but I had orangish red on my brush, and if I grab more purple with that, then I'm contaminating this purple with the orangish red. So to clean my brush, to grab more purple to add to this little pile that we've got over here. So I know there's steps, but that's why I like doing these videos, so you can see kind of what I'm doing, because I might do it too fast in class and you won't even notice. Yeah, there we go. Get some red from over here. Thinking. Let's grab. I'm gonna grab this. It's not touching that. Let's see if we can get away with it. If not, I'll have to wash my brush again. I'm thinking that might be kind of cool. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I made that color. Oh dear, look what I did. I made a splash. I am just gonna run this down this side. Oh, I do like that. I do like that. I love the way that purple and red just made this wonderful deep color. Isn't that pretty? Really, really like that. Very much so. And I better get to that mistake before we have to come up with a way to rescue that. Ooh. I guess we could just put splatters all over that edge, couldn't we? First thing I'm going to do is blot it. I might be too late. I really might be too late, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Oop. No, might be able to get that off. It's kind of pulling up the tooth of the paper. So I may have to just do a random splatter over this just for fun to get rid of that drip that I just invaded with. Wasn't watching when I was mixing over that, so that was something I need to be careful about. Again, it's not something I would never do if it was just this painting. I would never mix my color over my painting, but because it's a video, I did it. So those are some of the things that I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't shooting a video. So just so you know, just be careful about where your colors are splattering. I just added some clear water to this to kind of blend these edges again. I really like that purple on there though. I might even add some straight. Just a swish of straight purple. Purplish red, that color we've been working with. Just pulled that right through there. I really like that. I'm not gonna overdo it though, because I like the way they are when they're just like mixing. And then I just noticed something else up here. Evidently when I was making those little spikies, it kind of did a weird thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it look like I meant it. I'm going to widen out the top part of this little cactus. And we're out of that original dark green. So I'm going to add a little more to my palette so I can use it. Grab a little, put a dab of it in there. So I'm just basically widening out the top of this part of this little cactus. So it looks like I meant it. Okay. And then clean the brush again and redo the little spike. There we go. Now it looks like it's supposed to be there. And now that we've done a little more, I think maybe these spikes could be a little bigger. What do you think? Kind of thinking that looks pretty good. Alrighty, I think we're to the point where all we need to do is put the darker bits inside those flowers. So I have this darker purple. It's kind of drying around the edges, which is good because now it's going to be a little more concentrated and I do need it a little darker. And all I need to do is just go, you know, there's some darker bits down in the inside of these flowers. And just kind of add a little bit of darker bit. And if those edges seem too harsh, I'll just come in with a clear brush, clear water, on my brush a little bit, not a lot, and soften those edges a bit. So that's all that needs. Just enough to give that a little more dimension. That's all we're trying to do there. And then because I have that bad spot, here we go. I am going to take, here. Yeah, I like that better. That looks a little softer. And those are some very soft, delicate flowers. I don't know if you guys have seen cactus flowers or been to a desert, but that is definitely what they look like. So we've got this splattered thing. So we're going to do some splatter. It's kind of scary to do splatter. And I'm going to lift this up and set it over here while I show you how to do splatter. I'm going to get this fan brush wet, and you can also do it just with one of your other brushes, something that will, like either of these. So I got them wet. I'm going to pull up some purple on one. And it's kind of wet because it's got a splatter, and you just do this. Okay? And you don't want to overdo it because you want it to be randomy looking. Okay, so now I'm going to go this way. Whoop, that's not wet enough. It's not splattering. Okay. There we go. That's it. So now I'm going to repeat that on our actual cactus, and we will be finished. So I'm going to get my orange wet on this fan brush. There we go. And I'm going to set this brush down. Doing this with two brushes in my hand is not smart. And I have to make sure I hit some here or it totally defeats the purpose, right? So I'm going to go like that and maybe over there. Now I'm going to take my purple and I'm going to go on this side and do that. And that's all I'm going to do. It seems a little overkill, but you know what? We needed to fix something, and nobody's going to know that we didn't plan that at the beginning to put that splatter on there. So it looks pretty. I like it. I'm still thinking this could be a darker shadow down in here. Now that it's drying, to just give that some weight. I mean, it's a cactus in a pot. I mean, it's got to cast a bit of a shadow, right? So we're just going to add another layer. Basically, my brush was pretty dry. And I'm just like popping in this darker purple. I'm going to try and scooch it over a little softly. So that's all I'm going to do. Like that. That looks nice. Here we go. That's it. Maybe a little more dark up in here. And that's our picture. So this week, this is what we're going to be doing in watercolor painting class. Is split complementary scheme cactuses. This isn't the only cactus version. I have a lot of different versions of what you can do, but this is one of them that you can do. So I'll see you guys on Thursday.